Hello and welcome to Gothenburg and what you could call a Swedish surprise, because you may have thought the Volvo EX90 meant the XC90 was going to be a thing of the past. That's not the case, and this revised version is just after being unveiled here in Sweden. And today here on Nobby on Cars we're going to take a look around and see what's different about this latest and greatest version of one of the safest cars in the world. More about that a bit later on. In this video, we're going to cover all that has changed in this latest version of the Volvo, and starting at the nose, there are some subtle changes. The Tor hammer headlights have been slightly revised. The bonnet is new, as are the front wings of the car, and if you come lower down on the vehicle, there is a new air intake over the lower part of the bumper, all helping with efficiency, because this car is still based on the previous version's platform. So Volvo have tried to extract more range, more efficiency from something that they were working with already. Does that have any limitations with the car in terms of battery size and range? We'll cover that a little bit later on. Now, wheel size, depending on what trim version you want to go to, and Volvo will still be doing up to the Ultra version of the vehicle. So this is sitting on 22-inch alloys. To be honest with you, as you probably know, it's such a large car that 22s look fine, and I do wonder if something like 19s, for example, would look a little bit squished just because of the vast size of the vehicle. Under these newly designed front wings is a different charging port that has been slightly revised. Charging speed stays the same, however, it's 6.4. The battery capacity is just over, again, 18 kilowatt hours. The usable part of that is 14 kilowatt hours, and that should get a top up in about 3 hours on your home charger at home from 0 to 100%. Range wise, we're still at about 70 kilometers. Now, a lot of the competition coming down the tracks and available pretty soon will do 100 kilometers, which seems to be the sweet spot with a PHEV. And that's one of the areas that, because Volvo are still working with the car they already had, there's some limitations there. So as we all know, 70 kilometers is terms and conditions apply in terms of battery temperature, outside temperature, all those variables. So are we looking at a real world 50 to 55 kilometers? It would be nice to see 100 all the same. So practicality wise then, we still have roof rails if you like putting roof boxes on top of the vehicle. Towing capacity is still up to 2,700 kilos, and the independent suspension setup on the rear has been re-tweaked to give you better traction if you do a lot of towing. There's also a double wishbone suspension on the front of the vehicle, all hoping to make the ride of the car even better. Let's have a little look at the interior of the boot, because it's an important part in an XC90 for a couple of reasons. One, if you do use the extra row of seats on a regular basis, or you just want to take advantage of the massive boot. Before we do all that though, just to show you the rear tweaks of the car as well. The rear light design has changed ever so slightly on the car. Really, apart from that, it's business as usual. A huge rear wiper on the car. In a world where people are complaining about the wipers disappearing from vehicles, Volvo have said go hard or go home, because this thing is the length of an adult arm. So whether it rains in Sweden or Ireland, you should be well covered. So this latest version of the XC90 has a slightly wider opening area for the tailgate, which is obviously electronic, and you would expect no less on a car of the price. Now, what is always great about the XC90 when it comes to the boot? Well, there's lots of things, but one of them is, even with the rear row of seats up, you are getting a substantial area. Now, if you have a family of 7, you're not going to fit a week's shopping in here, but maybe you don't. Maybe you're a family of 5 and you occasionally use these extra seats. Well then, I mean, you're probably going to get a week's shopping in here if you do need more space. Seats are really light for anybody who's really able to raise and lower them. It literally just takes a couple of seconds to get them back up. You might have to go around to the front of the vehicle to pop them back up, or if you just have one seat down, you'll be able to lift. Volvo are renowned for making some of the best seats in the world, and there's a good bit of weight in them at the same time as them being easy to to maneuver, if you get my drift. Some of the other clever stuff in the back here, so there's a little nib in the vent here for catching the seat belt for rear passengers, a little bit of storage down here, drinks holders and an air vent. So even in the back row on a hot day, you should still have nice cool air if needed, circulating this rear part of the XC90. In here is 640 litres of storage space, as long as you have the third row dropped. And that really is a vast amount of space for pretty much anybody. Now there's a parcel shelf cover that isn't in this car because the rear seats are up. It's not going to fit under here, but you do have some of the clever stuff that remains. So a little few hooks on this. This partition can stay up like this. You have elastic bands. There's a good bit of practicality, and then you can further lift here for your Type 2 charging cable to plug that into your wall box. And you'll probably fit one or two other bits, and below this again then there's some other bits such as a tire mobility kit and things like that. And then dotted around the rear, for example, if you have a tow bar, there's a button for releasing and bringing that back up into the vehicle really quick. Couple of shopping hook holders, 12-volt chargers, bright white LED lights. It kind of has it all. So whether you go camping a lot with the family, whatever it is, you'll be able to use most of those gadgets, even an air fryer perhaps, in the back of the XC90. So load of space, 640 litres, more space than pretty much anybody is going to need. The Volvo Will It Fit feature is not on this car, usually here on their vehicles, probably because they don't need it. They're like, will it fit? Look at it. Yeah, of course it's going to fit. Come on, like. Anyway, let's have a look in more detail at the inside of this new version of Volvo's flagship SUV. Volvo have over-engineered the rear seats to an inch of their life. The amount of different levers you can have, whether you want to tilt the full seat forward like this, or drop this front seat forward, and like, look how quick that is, and it's totally flat from a loading point of view. And then the middle row can just be adjusted all by itself if you have just two outer passengers, and for leg room for the third row if required. All these seats individually move forward and back. So really it is the ultimate in space and versatility when you need to use these seats on a modular basis. They're all completely independent and it's excellent. Not a huge amount of change in the rear of the car, but the previous version was pretty good in that respect. So some of the stuff that has changed is the climate area on the back of this rear central tunnel. There is still a significant hump in the floor. Again, nothing much can be done about that. The plastic footplate is still there, but they would want to be fairly small feet to fit in there. We have an armrest if you're not using this center seat that pops out ever so slightly differently this stage. Two cup holders that are, they're going to need this part of the contraption just to hold everything into place. So it all just feels really good. Just the seats in a Volvo, if you've never experienced it before, they are just some of the best from an ergonomic point of view. We have nets on the back of what were traditionally the map holders in the car. Plenty of head height if you've got taller rear passengers, plenty of space for their knees, their feet under the seats. It's all very positive in here. The little Swedish flag remains on the sides of the seats as well, just to remind you of the heritage of where your XC90 has come from. You might think this is a 12-volt charging port, but it does look like it from a housing point of view, but hidden beneath it are two USB-C charging points to keep everyone in the back happy when they're screaming that their tablet is about to run out, even though it's got 20% left and it's impending doom from a child's point of view. And the glass panoramic roof, unlike a lot of cars these days, still opens. So if you want some fresh air coming into the cabin, you can slide the roof back. It doesn't quite go into the third row of seats for everybody, but it's a vast amount of glass, so it will still afford a lot of light to flood into the vehicle. And if you've got smaller children and you want to keep them nice and shaded from the sunshine, these blinds just pop up, and because they're factory fitted, they're just seamlessly integrated into the door. So again, just very well put together and a solid experience in the back. There's now a more horizontal feel to the dashboard in the newest version of the car. Some things that also I haven't seen before in a Volvo, and you know where we have seen it before, is a fireplace. So just to make you feel extra toasty when, I don't really know why I mean, is it for romantic nights in the car? If you have all these children, your romantic nights are probably not very often anymore. So maybe Volvo were like, yeah, you need some candlelight, you need some kindling burning in the vehicle. The Google Assistant is present on the car. You can ask it to do anything. It will probably get confused now because it'll be wondering what I'm trying to do, but a quick switch of the X will turn that off. The camera on board, so you got the 360 overview. The resolution of the camera is now better, say Volvo. That fire is just kind of giving me anxiety. So you also have the built-in Spotify on the system. There's 2 markets in the world that don't have this Google-based platform. They are China and South Korea. They have a different base system. But for the rest of us worldwide, in Europe or America, it's just brilliant because it has the real-time Google Maps traffic built in. It'll tell you where charges are. It'll give you your battery percentage from where you're leaving and your destination and the return leg of the journey. So it just makes life easy. It's an 11.2 inch screen, so it's plenty of visibility. And unlike the EX30 and EX90 from Volvo, you're not constantly relying on just this screen. You still have the driver instrument display as well. That really hasn't changed looking at it from experience of previous versions of Volvos with both screens. So no complaints there. But Prime Video and Audible all built in as integrated widgets within the vehicle. So if you are charging somewhere or you're just, I don't know, parked up, you can watch video on the display as long as you're not driving. And all the safety features, as you'd expect, are built into the car, such as blind spot. It will detect large animals such as a moose from the Swedish heritage of the car, pedestrians, cyclists, other road vehicles. There's radar and cameras on the front of the vehicle. And as I mentioned at the start, it is one of the safest cars in the world. Since this car went to production, no driver or passenger have been killed in an accident in a Volvo. That's not a Volvo statistic, it's from accident investigations in America. It's a hard-hitting fact, a sobering thought, but again lends itself nicely to the safety ethos of Volvo vehicles. Then the more normal stuff you might expect, like blind spot in the mirror. And then the odd contrast of that is it's a 455 brake horsepower car. So it's extremely safe, but also extremely quick. You may not want to transport 7 people to 100 kilometers an hour in just over 5 seconds, but it is possible in this car. So a lot of speed, a lot of performance, maybe for a safety overtaking point of view rather than the idea of how fast it can go, but ultimately still a very, very safe car. Looking around then at some of the interior features, the gear shifter slightly tweaked, the engine start-stop switch is still here. The cup holders have been slightly redesigned to also accommodate thinner, more vertical drinks, if that's the thing. You have a wireless charging plate that goes on here. Underneath the armrest you get some 2 USB-C charging ports and a very handy 12 volt, and if you're not using any of this space you can securely cover it up with this nice wood effect in this particular vehicle. If you want a beige color, a dark color, there's 2 different options and they don't charge you extra if you want to go dark over the lighter trim. And if you're reaching around in your XC90 one day going, where is the switch for the glove box? It's just here. You pop that down and nicely damped effect. So as you look around, you will sort of see your money's worth in the car. Head-up display in this version of it, a Bowers & Wilkins optional sound system. It also says, according to Volvo, it would let you feel the music as well as hear the music. I'm not quite sure if they've fitted vibration plates into the seats. I don't think they have, but nonetheless you will feel immersed in whatever sound mode you are listening to. Laminated glass is something that comes on this new version of the XC90 as standard, and the A pillars here and the B pillars in the car have been fitted with foam that will help with sound insulation. So in theory, a quieter cabin, especially at higher motorway speeds compared to the last version. Little subtle tweaks here and there, certainly not enough really to call it a vastly different car on the inside. But again, we were building from a very nice solid foundation. Over 1 million XC90s have been sold around the world, which in itself tells you that people think of this car as the ultimate in 7-seater mobility. Safe, reliable, spacious, powerful. In Ireland we'll only get the PHEV version, but some would say that's the best of many worlds. You have a 4-cylinder petrol engine, e-boost, turbocharging, a synchronous motor. It has so much going for it. Now, it would be nicer, as I mentioned, to see that range climb closer to 100 kilometers on pure electric. I think that's kind of the spot where people go, okay, well, I could probably drive to work and back every day on that and charge and, you know, not have to put too much petrol into it. If you drive it like that, you should be able to achieve 1.2 litres per 100 kilometers or 236 miles per gallon if you're watching this in the UK. And those figures for a vehicle of this size, if you charge it, is really, really interesting. Are you surprised that Volvo have continued with this car? Were you maybe in the camp where you thought the fully electric version, the EX90, would be the one that would wipe its eye and blow it out of the water? Prices of this car, Volvo Ireland say, shouldn't change too much from the existing model, which starts at €93,000. If you go for an ultra trim version, you're looking at closer to €105,000. These are not cheap cars, they're not for everybody, but as I think we've demonstrated in today's video, if you want the ultimate in 7-seater luxury, you really can't go wrong with this latest version of the Volvo XC90. Let me know your thoughts down below. Is it one that would make you go again if you've already had one of these in the family? Please comment down below. Thank you very much for coming with me this far in the video today. You might consider liking and subscribing to the channel if you've enjoyed this first look at Volvo's latest SUV.